All right, so we should be live now. So, hi and welcome to Fostering Opinion, episode 3. I am the host, Travis Foster, and today I am joined by podcaster extraordinaire. He is a historian of all things pop culture. He is the one, Mr. Chris Antista.
Hi, Trav.
So, no, it's going great. So obviously, I've been a big fan of yours for a while, and I wanted to have you on here just because I like to conversate with you about different things in pop culture because you have such a very vast mind. And plus, you know, what's a good chance to promote some of your stuff to come on another show and do that. But I absolutely love what you guys do over at Lasertime with the different shows, with the different articles. I find everything you guys kind of do really fascinating. And like I said, me and you,
you are our demo. We met you.
Right.
No idea before that. Didn't seem to work for anybody. More video games is all we seem to hear.
Right. And we can't kind of start there. It's like I've always found that boring. Like I've come at it as a game journalist side, right? As with yourself, and like I've told you before, I didn't start thinking this was a route. Until I started listening to Talk Radar, and like you guys were having conversations that me and my friends were having. So then I was like, oh, well, this is something I could do. But
and I remember I met you because you were a jerk who had a strong opinion about where back a dinosaur story.
Oh, yeah. So for people who don't know this, Tyler Wilde, from still a PC gamer, and Chris's old roommate, had he was on a tweet. He was tweeting about Land Before Time, and I have very strong opinions about that film. I like the second one a lot more. Granted, I've seen the second one a lot more.
The second Land Before Time.
Yes, the second one.
We need a better demographic. This is not going to work. You cannot like the straight-to-video Land Before Time. 1 of 10. Better than the George Lucas Don Bluth original.
I don't think the second one was direct to DVD. I think that actually came out in theater.
Oh, I'm a little older than you. I would have been there. I would have been there at the Pizza Hut getting little puppets for myself, and I wasn't.
But yeah, think about it. I was 5, 6 years old when the second one came out, and that it's the reason why I like Rescuers Down Under more than I like The Rescuers. I
think they're both great.
Yeah, it's just reputation, right? But
totally.
Besides that,
Rescuers Down Under is wrapped up in my nostalgia, but I do watch the original, and it's fucking great. Can I curse?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. This is a show that I do, so of course, Blue Language is going to happen. But no, it's the thing is To get a long story short, Tyler was talking about it on Twitter, and I very jokingly, half jokingly said that I think We're Back is a better movie than Land Before Time, and it became this whole big thing. But I would like to say that we all became friends. It was it was a fun internet thing that happened, and no one was shitty, which is the most rare thing that happens on the internet now.
I think we were both shitty for a little bit, but I mean, the only maturing I've really, because I love dick and fart stuff, the only maturing I've done is that I don't hold any faith in my opinion. I'm not even that interested in it. It's just more the idea of talking about it with somebody who has a different opinion. That's what I like to do. Now I don't know. And it's a lot easier to do with movies and television and stuff than it is with games at this point.
Right. Well, I mean, and that's the reason why I want to do the show, and the reason why I did want to have people on like you and people on that I do disagree with on stuff, because I think having that ideas, and I think this is what the strong take, hot take culture is kind of taken away from us, is that idea of, hey, I might be wrong about something, or you have a different observation on something, and it will completely change how I think about something. To get you more of a chance to be have critical thought in it.
And there's still a train of thought. I get angry at video games because every time I'm Video Game Apocalypse, I'm like, I didn't like this game, and then someone will respond to me as if I said I didn't like them because our opinions don't line up, and that doesn't happen with a lot of other things. It's just video games, which is just it's very weird. It's very, very strange that people put, like attach so much of their personality to these kind of things. And I get my personality is totally wrapped up in geek culture. That's understandable. But like, I can understand someone not sharing my opinion, except for your whole Land Before Time 2 thing. That is just this is unbelievable.
Land Before Time 2 introduced a Tyrannosaurus Rex as a baby. As a baby, Chomper, and it was more of the family. It was more of the family film that I grew into being a Disney born kid, right?
I can see that.
Yeah, it's like why I have a fondness for Rockadoodle Doo and like those later Kung Fu stuff. So like it's just I understand. I may not agree, but I understand why people like.
If someone like I like so many stupid and obscure things. Like, oh, thank God someone's talking about them. Like, I don't care what you like. I was fascinated to meet an individual. I told that story before, meeting Bob Mackey, that he has really hard opinions on like deep Looney Tunes. Like, most people don't ever talk about Looney Tunes, let alone have a differing opinion on Chuck Jones, on What's Opera Doc in this case. And I was just like, I'm gonna like this guy forever.
Right.
Because I don't care if he believes what I believe or if we have the same opinions. And so we're going out tonight. We're going to go see Mystery Science Theater 2000 live, where where the show that taught me how to lovingly mock things.
Right. And I think that's the shared culture, right? We've all come from that, like, you know, like I said, the Mystery Science Theater 3000 of like, hey, here's something that we can objectively look at and be like, maybe this isn't great, but we can still have fun with this thing. Right?
Yeah.
And like you said, with like one of the reasons why I gravitated towards you was that you were a huge animation guy. And before I even played video games, I was really into animation. Like, that's all right. I'm a military brat, so I grew up in the Netherlands. And I didn't have I don't have a lot of like baseline. Old friends. No, absolutely not. But I don't have a lot of baseline like television nostalgia. Like you guys do show Talking Simpsons, where you break down like, hey, here's what's happening on this day.
Yeah,
we got The Simpsons on the Armed Force Network whenever we got a chance to get The Simpsons. So me catching The Simpsons was a thing of like every episode was a new episode, right?
Yeah. We mentioned that in the I think the second season. Yeah, like you guys, it started overseas in like the second season, and that means you got like 2 straight years of new episodes.
Right.
That must have been really neat. Jealous.
Right. But what my mom used to do to supplement that was she would buy VHSs of old Looney Tune stuff. So like I had a compilation VHS that was taped that my uncles did, where were just like all these Looney Tune blocks. So like the one where Bugs is stranded on the island. I've seen every Tortoise and Hare like multiple times. That's just because that's what I had. You know, I was Bob.
Fantasy Island period. What is that called? It's not. God damn it! It's my uncle was stationed in Okinawa, and he handed me the Looney Bugs Bunny movie, and I watched that over and over again. That's the same film as what is it called? Fantasy Island?
You talk about the Daffy Duck. What is it?
Quackbusters. It's not the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie. It's we'll get it eventually.
Yeah.
Keep going. I might look it up if I have the chance. That's gonna fucking because I remember that Daffy Duck is Ricardo Montalban.
Right. It's Daffy Duck and Gonzalez.
And I'm referencing a show I've never seen. I have never seen Fantasy Island. If it wasn't animated, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch anything non-animated until about 1990.
Right.
Or didn't love anything non-animated.
Right. But no, so like I mean I have affinity for. I don't have affinity for the Police Academy movies. I have affinity for the Police Academy, the cartoon, because that's what that's what my mom, that's
Fantastic
what my
Island. Anyway, sorry.
Fantastic Island. Yeah, that's what mom was able to give me. It's like I've seen the Police Academy cartoon way more than I've seen the Police Academy movie.
I'm still that franchise has no fans. Trying to find art for it on the internet, like it got 7 movies, and it has not one fan, no living fan of the Police Academy films.
Well, it's so what I equate it to is I think when they went through that whole thing where they were taking these rated R movies, and it was something else like I should write something about this one day because it's an interesting topic. They have all these rated R movies, and they were just like, well, kids are going in to see these. Let's just make cartoons out of them.
No, it was the theory I posited when we were talking about the third one is that these became staples on HBO. And they learned like this may not have been a huge thing in the theater, but now this franchise has fans, and kids are going to see this whether it's rated R or not. So why not open the floodgates? And we did a whole episode of Lasertime about Nerf sequels, or like I think sequels that found, and in my opinion, almost every time they found bigger audiences on cable than they would have in the movie theater. So they just knocked the rating down to PG, like get that tit out of there. And like the Police Academy first couple are a little rapey anyway. Like no one's really complaining that they got nerfed.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of the it's a lot of those 80s comedies, right? That's why people say like the whole problematic and all that stuff because like like in Revenge of the Nerds, like he literally rapes a chick and he's like, oh, it's cool, I'm a nerd, all I do is think about sex. So this
and like I think if I'm being honest, I'd probably like dreamed about situations like that, like not being confident enough as me. If I dress like somebody else, maybe I can get in there. And yeah, it's a disgusting fantasy, but it's not one that didn't exist. So the movie's shitty for that reason. But like I don't know, like
it's a relic of its time.
I get in trouble for a lot of that, but like I do think like yes, every generation is smarter than the last, more sensitive and more connected. To impress what you know and what you've learned on generations from 40 years ago, yeah, that wasn't appropriate in that movie, but like you're better than they are. Like they didn't have that information, and like it's not great, and maybe it shouldn't be shown, but like I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating what people didn't know was not okay back then. I don't judge too harshly because it's bad. Get it, move on.
Well, I think as an anthropological look at it, I can use big words. Look at me. But I think you have to show those things in context, right? Is why John Lasseter comes in front of those old like cartoon shorts. It's like, hey, this is a very sensitive time. It's not cool for now, but we can't let this go away because this is very important. Like,
it's still fun. There's still fun to be had. It's still a fascinating product, and it's just. But that's I understand that. I understand providing that context for people. But it's when I hear people get really upset about old stuff, it's like, but you're just using this as the only context is you, and like this wasn't right then by any means, but like there's a lot of context that you have that they didn't, and you're lucky you had the internet and 24-hour news and a history book that goes past the Korean War. Like this wasn't information that was available to everybody, and I make defend a lot of old Looney Tunes just because like whenever they make anybody of any ethnicity, it looks bad because one, it's only Mel Blanc, and two, they're going off of like 2 documentaries they might have seen on TV on what these nations might have looked like, or what these people spoke like, and like, well, this documentary said they like dancing in big sombreros. That's what a Mexican is, and like, you know more than that. Good for you. Please don't yell at the man in the 50s for not having that kind of information. I understand it's not great. We shouldn't show this to kids now, but like, relax.
I don't know if I don't think we should show it. I think we should still show these things.
I think people who are interested will seek that shit out regardless. And like, I understand the idea of not like, there's certain things that like I saw on television that like, if I were a programming director, I wouldn't be completely comfortable with it. I mean, somebody just yelled at me for like Short Circuit, one of my favorite movies, the Fisher Stevens character, like hurting a bunch, hurts people of brown and Indian people, like with that depiction, like, I don't want to make that call. Say like everybody should see Short Circuit. To me, it's like it's such wonderfully nostalgic entertainment, and yeah, it sucks. But I wouldn't want to be the program director putting my neck on the line to show that on cable. Never.
No, I think when you have to kind of curate that stuff, right? It's the reason why like a lot of Cartoon Network stuff, and I'm going to use this to go into a new topic, but a lot of Cartoon Network stuff. Was a lot of like Ruby Spears entertainment, or like the 70s Hanna-Barbera, where it's kind of like it's extremely sterile, but it's easy because, like you said, there's nothing that you have to challenge, or you have to like, hey, let me give you this context in this, or this is why we're having it, because we have very sterile entertainment that it's very interchangeable and everything is fine. because that's what the entertainment was for,
Yeah, and that's all that we had.
Yeah,
I wrote a post about Teen Titans Go, which is a show I looked at and like, I don't want to like this. I don't care to like this. I don't care about the original Teen Titans. It seems weird that they take these characters and make them chibi comedy characters, but it was hysterical. And I was just remembering my favorite show was He-Man, which I watched with no excitement, no real joy. It was just the best that I had.
Right.
And it sucks, and it's awful, and it should be forgotten, and I hate it. Right. But it was my favorite show.
Right. And so that actually reminds me, whenever you bring that up, I think of, I'm not sure if you ever saw the 2010, 2011 Thundercats remake that they did.
I didn't. It was a Cartoon Network joint, right?
Yeah, it was a Cartoon Network. It was a Cartoon Network joint. And I actively hated Thundercats as a kid. Like, it would come on, and I would just be so I'd be so uninterested. I would be like, oh, just like, and it was the show, but it was the show of my generation. There's a lot of shows like that. Like, I'm not a Johnny Quest guy. Like, a lot of those like weird.
Oh, like, well, the Japanese stuff is just at some points a little more palatable just because it's pretty and staged well. Like, He-Man is fucking atrocious. It looks like a Conan O'Brien sketch. It's really bad.
Well, that's all before they started going in with the Korean animation studios to do that stuff. So
people, but the Japanese, the Thundercats and Voltron, like, just the music is of a better production level.
Right.
The staging is of a better production level. Even when the animation is jerky, like, it at least has that stock footage. It looks beautiful when everything literally comes together and forms a giant man.
Right. But what I found interesting with the 2011 show, it was really well done, and like the story was really great, and like it they did a lot of good choices with the voice acting. Will Friedle, who I think is one of the most underrated voice actors. Like, he plays Lionel in the show. They skew Lionel a lot younger, like he is in the original part of the show, and then he grows up and he's like a full grown man, but like they skew him as younger. They do the whole thing, and it does like this really interesting thing. And then Netflix just did the new Voltron series. Voltron Force, which is fantastic, and
I pretty great.
I wanted to hate that show because I am a super weeb that's like, I want Mystical Knight, Go Lion, or don't give me anything. I don't care. I have no attachment to Voltron. I want this form of Go Lion, and the show is great. Like, I went in actively like, oh, this is gonna be bullshit, and I was blown away. So, and what I would ask you is, and you made a point where you were talking about, Teen Titans thing when Cyborg was doing the whole like rock song.
90 is the shine. Look it up.
Is the shot. Yeah,
it's great.
And he's doing the whole interest, and you're like, this is what happens when you have fans of this stuff. Go into the animation.
I don't know. I didn't even know I hammered that point on, because that's an excellent point. Where like, people who are making this stuff actually like it, and I've heard from life is not good for animators. They do have to kind of love it. They're underpaid, undervalued, overworked. Most of them do genuinely love the form, whereas before, like, it was just finding its legs. I'm thinking of reading this biography about fucking Teletoons and Hanna-Barbera, just because as much as I give that stuff shit, I do sort of appreciate it for paving the way for less expansive animation, television animation, more abundance of animated characters. They deserve that credit, and it's
well, it's weird. Just like on that history stuff, for a project you used to do, Cartoon Christmas, I did a lot of research for Hanna-Barbera because I reviewed an old Yogi Bear Christmas special. But it like Hanna-Barbera, like when they left MGM, they wanted to do more small scale. Like, they saw TV was this market, so let's take these like kind of vaudeville acts, or these small acts, and just make animated versions of them. And then they they branched off and they started going like, well, let's take the Scooby-Doo thing, like this thing. It's like a small kind of small detective story. You wrap it in a cartoon, and then that became gangbusters. Did you have Ruby Spears? Like, okay, we'll steal this formula and we'll do 20 for. So I think in the act of like trying to assimilate and make it easier for cartoons to become, and you did get at least that period of well, let's just put anything. Let's throw everything at the wall and let's see what sticks.
And for years, it all worked because it was better than nothing.
Yeah.
And I think only now have we arrived at the spot where like, oh yeah, some stuff just sucks.
Right.
You can't fill kids' brains with 70 Scooby-Doo ripoffs like they did for my generation in the early to late 80s. Yeah, that would be totally unacceptable. And it's weird to see those characters. They're all kind of lost, all gone.
Well, yeah, it's almost like you said, like there's no nostalgia for it. I would be very hesitant to ask someone who was born in like, say, in 95 or 96, like, do you have any form of reference for Fangface or
Huckleberry Hound?
Right. Like outside of a Robot Chicken sketch, like, do you know who Snagglepuss is, or
Then why would you? I don't fault you for not knowing.
Right. It's like you said, it is a thing, but they tried multiple times because you had shows like Yo Yogi, the Pup Named Scooby-Doo, Tom and Jerry Kids.
Talked about that. Yes, the Yo Yogi, the show that killed cartoons on NBC.
Was it that, or was it Wish Kid? Was it Pro Stars? Like,
that's just the last one I remember, because we recorded Talking Simpsons where like it was in '92 was when NBC announced like no more Saturday morning cartoons, Saved by the Bell or nothing. We'll play fucking golf instead of paying for all these cartoons, because their cartoons were dog shit for the most part. Not necessarily Yo Yogi, but like Knights of the Round. I remember like this. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, I remember. I came to the States around 92, 93. So like I caught the tail end of that. And I remember watching Wish Kid, and I was like, "This, like, what is this? Like, what is this?
Mac is my guy."
It was that, and then like John Candy's show, Camp Candy. Yeah. So like you said, kids, like we have. What's so weird is just that we have such a weird kind of wide range of cartoons, right? That we,
I think due to the nature of just television trying to mine old movies and old TV shows for as much entertainment as possible.
Right.
And I love that statistic. Like just as of last year, there's more new television. It hadn't really happened before in America. There's more new television than a human being can watch physically.
Right.
You can't watch it all, but like my parents' generation, you could literally, with the VCR that didn't exist, you could watch everything within probably a day of binging. You could see everything new on television. It was easy to do. You could skipping the local news. You could see every single new show on first run television. It was very easy, and that's why like shows. I get nostalgic for shows like Mystery Science Theater, because I'm learning about these shows on Nick at Night, and they're referencing them because everybody their age had the same experience. That's
right.
Kind of neat. I hope we don't lose stuff like that for us.
Well, I think what happens is when you grow into a niche, right? When you have niche markets where it's easier for, if I only like to watch Japanese animation, I have a cable channel dedicated to that.
Sure.
Also, I have Crunchyroll, I have Hulu, I have my avenues to like what I want to like. I think that's one of the things that we could actually negatively see, is that we'll see a way with people just going into their niche. Well, we'll see a way of content kind of stagnating, because you can't evolve without bouncing off other things.
Yeah, I know it's a blessing and a curse. It's that like we won't have a lot of water cooler conversation. We won't have a lot of wide mainstream cultural touchstones. But everybody will get what they like, and people will be acknowledged as different entities, and not just this is the male demographic and the female demographic. And here's the black show, here's the white show. It'll be like everybody will be able to find something cool that they can kind of gravitate to and meet a weird little community. That to me is kind of neat. Yeah. Except for anime. Fuck that. No, I'm just kidding.
Anime is a problem and should have never happened.
I love some of it. I was watching something recently. I can't remember.
I openly love anime. I'm not a fan of anime fans. Like it's a whole thing. In my opinion,
a lot of them are the worst, because it's just this weird niche thing, and like they're like vinyl jazz fans, but like never been punched in the face for saying something terrible to somebody. They're all really like Curtis was writing up anime stuff on our site, and I got in trouble for yelling at guys, because like this is the typical anime fan response, and that this is a guy who likes the thing you like, and you hate him for not liking the thing you like in the same way you like it. Why be that way? And like I've never seen these kind of people on Lasertime before. Like,
well, it's because it's because it's a niche market, and then what I like, and this is one thing that resonates with me. I want you to agree with me completely. Like I've talked to Henry Gilbert multiple times about how much I hate Evangelion. I think Evangelion is trite. I think it's stupid. I think it's up its own ass. But I'm in a very vocal minority because a lot of people were Shinji Ikari's age when that show came out. It's like listening to ska at a perfect time place for your life where ska works with.
That could be true because like I do like that show that it is a touchstone of like this is anime rising above the stereotype of what everybody thinks it is, so everybody should watch it, and everybody has seen it. But like the thing is, I don't feel like you do about Evangelion, but you're right.
Right.
But you're right. That is an interpretation. I totally see that. I don't love it either, but absolutely, it's. But I haven't watched enough of it to know. It's one of those things people complain about on Lasertime that we don't cover enough anime, and I've always been of the nature like, but anime isn't. It isn't really a genre. It's like
but it is like
it isn't though. There's just an abundance of it from Japan. It'd be like me saying that I only watch Turkish comedies. That's all that I watch.
I could see that, but you would put British comedies and British sitcoms in
I
there.
said Turkish.
I understand. Well, I would say anime is a different genre just because of how it's paced. Like anime itself, as opposed to different animation, is paced and shot differently. Especially at that time, if we're looking at the early '80s when during the anime boom, or even the '70s, these are long form shows as opposed to the regular 15 to 30, 15, 22 minute. Run shows. Right. It's very.
As an animation fan, I hate all the cut corners. As a fan of writing, I hate the stalling that I see in a lot of the shows. And it's there are always exceptions for sure.
Right.
Funny stuff. Like just last year, I watched One Punch Man in Ping Pong the animation, which is just all about subverting all that and funny, funny on any level. It's great. But like I think a lot of anime fans love the tropiness of it all, and it feels very exotic and like. I get that because it feels like they all feel like Stallone movies for the most part.
Right.
The action-oriented stuff all feels like it's never changed since the 80s. It feels very 80s. Right. And I dig that. But I can't watch all of it.
No, and I don't think as anime guy, right? I can't like I was like this year. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and take this season, this one season, this spring season, and watch every show. And I did that for a week. Realized that that's not feasible. That's not feasible because
it's also not enjoyable.
No, it's not. When you actively watch a show you hate, like I do not recommend that for anybody. Like just say no. Just like I don't like this and back out. That's how I felt like during one of the shows this season. But it's like I said, it's just to me, it's a different thing. I understand what you're saying. Like as an animation guy, like I said, the hook to me. Wasn't that Dragon Ball? When I watched Dragon Ball Z, this was a brand new thing. It was just different animation. Like this was a different animation. This was a different fight scene, and I want to come in. I want to watch this because I'm also the kid who was watching Cartoon Network 24 hours a day. So
I got into DBZ with the internet because I know that Voltron occasionally and like Robotech told a consistent story. But everything was aired out of order, and we could never follow anything when we were watching things in syndication or like Battle of the Planets or the G-Force or whatever it is. Like nothing ever really made that much sense unless it was a self-contained episode. And then all of a sudden, and I remember my friends like, "Have you seen Dragon Ball Z?" I'm like, "No." And we're watching in like a fucking Winamp player like that, this big, and like it's a fan sub, so they're cursing needlessly a lot. And like, this is great, a story that I can continue to follow. And then when I started watching it on TV, I just started people grunting and charging themselves for nearly 20 minutes as a story is not told. It's just like, that is an example of things seeming cheap, and it made me mad watching it on television. Not so much when I was watching it by illegal downloads.
Right. Well, I would say this, like, as someone who was 13 in middle school, that I was the perfect demo. Like it like you said, it is a Stallone-esque movie of like, and it's the reason why, like, as an adult, I gravitate more to Dragon Ball, which isn't that. Dragon Ball is literally, it's what Akira Toriyama does best, which is very slapsticky comedy stuff. Like, it's the reason why even the video games he's done, like Chrono Trigger and you know, the Dragon Quest games, like they have comedy bits in them because he does really good emotion, you know, facial emotion, and does good facial comedy pratfalls. Like, he's really good at that.
I just always find it weird to say you're a fan. It's like, it is like saying, because it is a bit of a genre, but there's also comedy, drama, action, suspense, mystery buried within anime, and it's just sort of like, oh, I'm a fan of British animation. Like, what does that mean? You know, Inspector Gadget, Banana Man. That, like, I love all the. It's impossible for you to love all those. You have to have some taste here.
Right. No,
there has to be some distinction.
No, absolutely. And like I said, to get this whole tangent over, it's what we're seeing now with those shows. Like I said, like I was talking about earlier, like with Thundercats and Voltron, like having fans, and even a new TMNT, which was another thing. Like, it was a CG Turtles should hate it, and Rob Paulson actually said, like, the reason why he came back to the show was, like, those guys were a fan of the original cartoon in the 80s, not so much the comic. So that's why it has a lot of the more of the cartoon tropes. It's still more dark. It's still darker. Like, it's not a 2003 show, which I think is a good show, but it's.
I have not seen. I've been wanting to watch it, but there isn't any way to start from the beginning by any of my streaming services just yet. I imagine it'll appear on Amazon. But I was going to ask you, but Ninja Turtles is the exception to the rule of, like, it seems to thrive and exist in every form and keeps going and like works every time. Because when you were talking about Thundercats, I would, like, it rebooted in 2011. I'm like, who is that for? Is that for me who grew up on it? Do you want a 25-year-old to watch this cartoon? Do you want this? Is this for a young person? They don't know who Thundercats are, so you could have created anything else, and they would have treated exactly the same. And none of them seemed to last, except for Transformers and Ninja Turtles seemed to defy that. Because we did that thing of, like, what's the oldest action figure in the Target toy aisle, and the only things. Did you hear that episode? I don't want to repeat myself.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful revelation.
But you can definitely, like, for anyone who's hopped in and hasn't seen the episode, absolutely.
Like, what was awesome about that, I walked in a Target toy aisle and tried to see when every character was introduced, and I was shocked that, like, the multiplexes this summer are dominated by characters created 30 years before I was born. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Batman, Superman. These are characters that date back to the 1940s. And like, who were the ones launched in my decade when I was a kid? And there are two that are still around for young boys, Transformers and Ninja Turtles, both of which debuted 1 year before the NES. And the NES cratered everything else that could have existed. A young boy's imagination after '85 was solely invested in the Nintendo world. And nothing was introduced that is still around after '85. After that, it took, like, I think, till Power Rangers is the first thing I could see in the Target toy shelf 6 years later that had ever penetrated young male consciousness to the level that Nintendo did. I just thought that was really neat. Yeah, no, and to pick up what you said, like, Ninja Turtles, it does have, like, the same. Like I said, I remember being a really young kid. That's what I grew up on was Ninja Turtles, right? And then you have the Next Mutation, which that failed, but then you had this. It's weird. I had this. My girlfriend was like, do you care about this?" And, like, I don't know what it is. Like, I'm not going to see out of the shadows immediately, but every time I see the Ninja Turtles in every form, even the ones I hated, I get happy. Every time I see them, it does not matter where, when. I don't know. It's just automatically. It's like the 2013, like when the original rumblings. I had absolutely no intention of watching it. It's like, they're aliens. This is stupid. I already let Michael Bay, break my heart with Transformers. I can't let him do this with something that's so important to me, because all the friends I've had literally were like, "Oh, hey, you like Ninja Turtles? I do too." This was the thing that was the most important thing to me. And my roommates, who I've known the longest, I've known them for over 20 years, they're like, "Hey, let's go watch this." They're huge Ninja Turtles fans. So I was like, "I'll watch this for you guys. Obviously, I'll watch this for you guys." And I watched the movie, and I don't hate it. I actually really like that movie. And
Megan Fox is horrible in it. And all the humans are bad in that movie. But it was.
What are you supposed to be? Giant Ninja Turtles? Would you prefer a party wagon? Have some faith in your premise. That was my big issue with that movie.
But what made me happy was that the turtles were done. It wasn't even like, oh, these are the comic turtles, right? Like that's my big hang up with the first movie is like those aren't the turtles that I knew.
It's a respectable movie, but it doesn't take any of the risks of like the show or the reason why kids like the turtles. It's very safe in that regard. I think it's a great movie. It holds up unbelievably well.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. But like I said, it didn't take any of that, and this movie did. And then what I've heard from Out of Shadows, haven't seen it yet. I will go see it in theaters. Is that they were just like, fuck it, this is what they want. Yeah. Let's do it. Like I was like, that's perfect. Like
I really like that aspect of it because I think even as recently as I didn't see the Avatar: The Last Airbender movie, but I heard like even they could commit to their own premise. Like you license this, what are you worried about? Like if this thing has enough fans to get asses in seats, why are you omitting important parts of this story for budgetary or conceptual reasons? It just and so I look at Ninja Turtles 2, it's like Krang, really awesome, fine, good. And,
they had it when they were.
But also, again, it doesn't matter if it's all that good. It just seems to make people happy. And the Transformers and Ninja Turtles Day stuff, I think that's only weird just because I don't know any huge fans of any of those. They seem to do well and keep coming. There's a 5th Transformers movie, The Last Night, but I don't know any fans of the movies.
I don't know. Like I know people who like will tolerate watching the movies, and every time
I know people go see them, but it's like they don't rewatch them. There's nothing to reference. They don't have shirts of them, action figures. It doesn't resonate the same way that a property like that should, in my opinion. I think that is a failing of that they're a waste of time for one weekend, and they don't stay in the consciousness longer than that. I don't see them on television because I don't think they're that popular in that area. I don't know. I could be wrong because the Transformers ride in Universal is pretty okay.
Well, I mean, I think they tried very hard to push that. I think around the first initial run, they did Transformers Armada on Cartoon Network, and then I think that the Disney XD, which does a lot of weird stuff, like I think there was a long-running Transformers show. I think they tried that, but they also tried to do reboot G.I. Joe, and they did a cartoon with that where it was more Japanimation, and they did G.I. Joe Retribution. G.I. Joe Retribution. This is probably like 2008, 2009. It's a more of a hard form G.I. Joe show that they were doing coinciding with the movie. But it's not really great. But it was something where they did try. I don't know. So here's where it gets weird. So I turned 30 this year, right? So I turned 30. I turned 30 literally right before PAX. So if you go to PAX, I would have just recently turned 30. People who go to PAX.
Everybody knew.
So I'm starting to see my childhood be reimagined, right? I'm starting to see like
weird, right?
It is like the Powerpuff Girls show just came back on. Craig Barnholt is redoing Hey Arnold. He's going to actually do a movie. He's going to do another movie. Like I'm seeing stuff that when I was a child, like now it's like, well, let's do that again. And I asked the question that you asked, who is this for? Should we be making new experiences? Like I look at shows like Steven Universe. I openly say that's probably the best, best show on television. Like I love it. I think Rebecca Sugar and her writing staff were fantastic. Like it is
wonderful. And I'm pissed that I never see it consistently. I see it in weird little blocks on Saturday morning and out of sync with the story. And I'm not caught up, but I do love that show. Just it's wonderful. So,
I just broke down and went and I did it through Google Play. Yeah, I did it through Google Play and just paid. Like I'll just buy a season.
I might do something like that too because I'm dying to catch up on the recent Into Deep event and I don't feel like stealing it. I don't know. We'll see.
But my thing is with those kind of shows like this, the story, like that show, the story is so great, right? And everything is good. With Adventure Time, I had to do that with Steven Universe because Adventure Time, that was the first show where it's like, I'm out of sync with everything. I have no idea what's going on. And he's telling these really great stories.
That's sort of the point.
Right. But, and we have a friend who is working, on cartoons right now, Charlie Gavin.
Hell yeah. Where's he at now?
He's at Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon?
He's working on Harvey Beaks.
Okay.
Which is a pretty good show. The guy it's
Charlie.
Yeah, it's a pretty good show. The guy who created it is C.H. Greenbolt, who did the Chowder Show.
Okay.
Around that 2009 when they started getting all those Cal Arts. Well, that's crazy. It's like because around that time when they got all those guys from Cal Arts, like you had the guy who did Flapjack. You had Chowder. I think that's when Pennington Ward. I think Pennington Ward worked on Flapjack, so like you had all this stuff going in. So. Like I really like seeing that. Rebecca Sugars recently said in an interview when she came on to Adventure Time that Pennington Ward was like, "Hey, I want you we want our artists to write." And like I said with Charlie, I've seen episodes where it's like written by Charlie Gavin. And I'm like, well, like I remember with this kid, like we were just podcasting, we were podcasting together. So like I think. I like where animation is going now.
Yeah.
Where we do have, like I said, where we do have these not only just fans, but we have these people who are so talented in multiple aspects that are being able to take home with shows, right?
Yeah, and just if you haven't read that, it's a very weird. It's hard to know how to feel about it. There's an awesome book called Sick Little Monkeys about Ren and Stimpy, and it's John Kay. Portrayed John Kay is kind of a dick, but he was somebody who was tired of writers dictating everything animators did, so asked his animators to also be writers or to prioritize the animation over the writing.
Right.
Because visually they're going to know what to do better than someone who's never animated before telling us to animate something. We want the writers in the room. So among many things Ren and Stimpy pioneered, it was that aspect of because what he was trying to do was recreate the Looney Tunes Termite Terrace thing, the idea of Chuck Jones and Tex Avery writing what they're doing or drawing what they're writing.
Right.
That was the process. Throw some gags in here. This will make the best cartoon. And I think if you look at the cartoons I grew up with, like He-Man, you can see we've got to get to the boring. There's nothing to animate. It's just somebody drawing people walking towards where the writers need them to go. It's boring as shit.
Right. Right. No, and I look at stuff like that, like Ren and Stimpy. One thing that you guys have been bringing up recently a lot on Lasertime, the Tom Ruegger shows, which Tiny Toons, Animaniacs, Historia, like all that stuff, and those were shows, and just looking back on it, those were formative to me, right? So
me too.
When I came over here, Tiny Toons was a big. I grew up on Looney Tunes, but here was Tiny Toons. They were telling it's these things that are so it's drenched in '90s nostalgia. In the '90s, it's so of the times. But now when you look at it now, it's that's the reason why I was really into it, because they would they're doing this movie, and this movie has a reference to Roseanne singing horribly at the at a baseball game. The baseball game. Yeah. But it's that's a joke. I was 5. There's no way I had no idea what that joke meant. I was okay, that's funny. Or here's the nighttime show hosts all being animated and then having their voices go through. It was such a weird thing. And now you kind of I said, you saw where those animators were we're gonna take what we can and bring it through. Somebody I think yesterday was talking about Samurai Jack, right? And Guinness Samarki is my favorite creator.
That's coming back, right?
Yes, it's coming back. I think it's this year. I think it's either this year or next year. But Guinness Samarki is my favorite creator. It started with Dexter's Lab, but his shorts, the Secret Scroll shorts he did on Two Stupid Dogs. Hotel Transylvania, Symbiotic Titans. You never seen those Secret Scroll shorts from Two Stupid Dogs?
Oh yes, Secret Squirrel. Oh, yeah, of course they did. Yes. I really didn't like that show.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was better than everything on Cartoon Network, and it aired once a day. It was better than Flintstones reruns and fucking Scooby Doo, Don Knotts mysteries. It was the best thing on Cartoon Network when I first got it, and I look forward to it every day. Too stupid.
Right. like I said, I was a lot younger, but I got a lot. I gained a huge affinity to that, and like I said,
I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, I became a big cartoon fan because of shows like that, because of the cartoon show.
Yeah.
Where I saw the Family Guy pilot before it became Family Guy.
It's really the skinny dude and the dog. Is that it?
He did the dog. It's literally just it's just the guy and the dog.
Yeah.
Like he like rescued the dog, and like they do Family Guy stuff. Like there's literally a Star Wars gag in it. So like, but you see that obviously the Powerpuff Girls short before they came things. Johnny Bravo and
I believe called the Whoop Ass Girls.
The Whoop Ass, yes.
They were originally titled. Yeah.
Yes, but so like I think kind of jumbling myself off the topic, but I think
I'll do that to people.
Yeah. What was great was that our generation got to see these creators do stuff that like with the advent of, hey, we're cable, we need anything. Like, hey, I know you did like this short for MTV about about these buff boys, but how about you do a show about kids in the cul-de-sac on Cartoon Network, and then you have Ed, and Eddie, or like
Bashing Brothers Grunt.
I am absolutely Bashing Brothers. I don't.
Very weird show. Weird.
I don't like his art style. I know what those shows are great. I know people like that. I know Dylan, who's my podcast partner. He's a huge fan of that show. He's also like 8 years younger than I am. So like I remember just watching that show with my little brother, who's the same age as Dylan. And I was like, I can't get into this art style or anything like that.
I watched it and felt nothing, but I was a little too old for it. I think I didn't love it. I didn't hate it.
Yeah. Well, and then like what's crazy is, and I think we're getting back to where cartoons are going to be more. I think more like that experimental, just because you have to, like I said, with the niche parts to it. Because I remember, and this is something else that was brought up on this week's Lasertime, which you guys should absolutely, if you haven't listened to yet, please listen to. It was fantastic. But Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network did two completely different things. Where Cartoon Network was kind of trying to recycle that, that charm of like, well, we'll get people as they grow up. So instead of us going, with a more adult Dexter and everything else, we'll go into Kids Next Door, or we'll go into Ben 10, right? And then for the other people, the older people, we'll import all these Japanese shows. We'll have their block, they'll have their shows and everything else. And then Nickelodeon, which was the channel that was doing live action television, they were like, well, we'll just do our cartoons older. So you have shows like all As Told by Ginger or Rocket Power, or
you were out of my wheelhouse.
Well, I only know those because I'm a bored kid and I like cartoons, and
I remember reading a giant article about that, how Snick was the idea of Nickelodeon, the first truly successful cable network with a theme. Right. Like we're losing viewers by staying for kids. We have to follow these kids into different stages of their lives until they're at least 34. We have to try, and that's what Snick was. Like, we need to move forward. And they're like, we are very serious about this initiative. The writer and artist behind Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, bring him in here. We want Invader Zim. We want like a Tim Burton-esque cartoon that's got violent with murder, and then immediately got cold feet and canceled one of the coolest shows ever. But Invader Zim.
Well, Invader Zim's a good example of that. You have to run 4 seasons of As Told by Ginger, this situational comedy that has no need to be animated at all, and it's done by Pastor Schuple art. So it just looks awful. So
I get bummed out because I got a Sling subscription because I haven't had cable in a while, and they have the Disney Channel, and it's just like, and my friend Charlie has a daughter, and it's like she's slowly getting into this stuff. Kids love these awful sitcoms. Disney Channel, I think, for the first time in 20 years, is the #1 rated network because of these awful live action situation comedies. And that's all the channel is. It's called the Disney Channel, and I don't like. There's no Disney characters on here. I don't know who this dog with a blog is. He wasn't even in The Rescuers.
But see, I would complain about that, but I was the generation that had my brother and me, and
I hate that show.
We let Keenan and Kel happen. So like, and they had.
I remember, like, at least it was like intentionally funny, and they were like, Keenan and Kel were funny people, whereas the kids and my brother and me, like, and I'm a little older, like, these actors are horrible. Goo is the comic relief, and he's the worst. He can barely get a line out. You haven't seen Goo get a lot of work. I'm right on this subject. I know it. I don't take my brother and me away from you.
No. I mean, I've literally not watched the show since I was a kid. What's funny is like the person who got like the most like the biggest acting bump was a guy who hosted it was two guys who hosted game shows on Nickelodeon. You have Michael Malley with Guts, and he does Mike and Molly, and then Omar Gooding all of a sudden was like, oh hey, you're a black actor, you're related to Cuba Gooding Jr. Let's you be in everything.
I remember I saw him as a school tough in a sitcom. I'm like, that's the Wildly Crazy Kids guy. There couldn't be anybody I'm less afraid of in the entire universe than Omar Gooding.
Well, I think he's in that Tyrese movie Baby Boy as like the antagonist. Yeah, I think he's like the antagonist in that movie, and I'm like,
awesome.
I can't see you as the antagonist. Like you're the kid's like, hey, we're gonna play dizzy baseball.
Man,
like
Singleton loves his Gooding. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it's yeah. Well, I mean, you can't have Cuba. Is that okay? So this is completely off topic.
Go for it.
Is Cuba Gooding Jr. crying in Boys in the Hood the funniest scene in cinema history?
When he's having a gun held to his face?
When he's in the house and he's like, after all that stuff happens, he's just like flailing and crying, and it's the single funniest like moment in cinema because I don't know if it's him overacting. I don't know if it's just like the raw emotion of it, but it's hilarious to me.
I am terrified of watching. I probably watch that movie like once a week for like 2 years, and I'm terrified to go back and rewatch it. I just want it to hold up in my head like it does.
It's okay. It's okay. It's not like so. I look at it as someone who grew up as a black youth in America. Like it's
me too.
it's okay, but it's like I also like I have fond memories of watching Next Friday like almost every day. Like when I see
that is one of 8 movies my girlfriend owns on DVD.
Really?
Not Friday after next, just Next Friday.
Well, Next Friday has a guy who started in Ant-Man. Like every time I see him, I'm like, that's Baby Joker. Like I can't see you as any other character but Baby Joker.
Who is that? Who is that?
The Luis from Ant-Man. Michael Pena, yeah.
No shit.
He is Baby Joker.
He's great in Observe and Report. That's one of my favorite comedies most people haven't seen. He's so awesome in it.
Observe and Report was so. I test the reason why people haven't seen Observe and Report much is because it was around the same time. I think maybe the same week apart. Yeah. So
I was confused. They don't know how. Like, no, this is a pretty decent story of a comedy about schizophrenia.
Yeah,
with like Seth Rogen improv in it.
Like Seth Rogen's great. I think. Like I've never seen like Anna Faris. Like she's just filthy in that movie. Like it's so good. It's so good.
I love her so much in that film. That is so good. That movie's great.
No, it's really. I remember. So I watched that movie, and then I think like the next week I went over to the same friend's house, and we were gonna watch The Spirit, and I've literally never talked to that friend since watching The Spirit. Spirit's an awful movie.
Yeah, I have it on Blu-ray. I've never checked it out. I don't know. It's been built up into like the realm of myth.
It's boring.
Is it boring?
It's just boring. Like I've never sat through a movie like and I watched Batman v Superman.
Huh.
But
you're a fan.
I do not hate that movie. Like there's problems with that movie. Like there's problems with every movie, but like
but it has all the problems. All of them. It has all the problems of like like one of those a franchise buoy, a thing that's trying to do too much.
Yes.
It has a problem of someone who doesn't understand the characters. It has a problem of an entire DC universe being set off with the wrong foot and the wrong tone. And I don't know. I in the end, I'll never forgive it for the end. No.
The Martha part.
No. I'm not a hater on that. I don't care if Batman kills somebody because let's be honest, Batman is a social.
No. I don't care. I actually. So what I liked about it was that Batman was like, I'm going to kill everybody because like, yes, that's who Batman should be.
That's an honest depiction of a modern Batman. He does not give a shit. He's playing against the rules, and I've only heard him say like twice, and one of the times it was in Arkham saying, "I don't kill," like because it always looks kind of like Batman kills.
Right.
I just don't think you're allowed to see it because comics are sold to children. Like,
right.
It's implied that he kills a lot of people.
Right. And like I said, I had no problem with that. The only, like I said, the problem I had a problem with the piss line because like that was just fucking. It was. I wrote a script like a while ago for a sitcom, and I had a line where someone shit on the bed. Like it was, and it was there. It's like it's a cheap pop, shit in the bed. Like it's an easy way to create conflict. But like when I was speaking with my friend, he was like, "You don't gain anything from him shitting on the bed. You have this cheap pop, and you have this conflict, but it's hollow." Having him piss in that jar and give it to like it was a fucking hollow scene. Like it was stupid.
No, I hate Jesse Eisenberg in that movie too. It's not good.
Yeah.
That is not a good Luthor. It's a decent Batman, and it's the wrong Superman because of Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
Cavill, I don't blame. So just a real bummer. Real bummer.
Yeah. But like I also seen that movie through. Right. I've attempted to watch Superman Returns 3 separate times. And I have fallen asleep each time.
Criminally boring. Criminally boring.
So like, I don't know if this is worse than Returns. Like I don't know if it's worse than Returns. You know, because
you have a point. Like to me, that is the biggest sin. Like to be boring. But then Zack Snyder's someone who knows that. Like as long as my camera's whooshing, man, I'm not boring anybody. But like, yeah, this is still trite and awful. And
well, it's just I've never understood people who are like hard form. Like I was never a Zack Snyder fan. Like I didn't like 300 when it came out. I was like, I'm very much not like super macho male guy, right? So 300 literally does nothing for me. Like I'm just watching. It's like, well, this is just a movie.
I liked it at the time because I read it. I was on a date with a beautiful girl who did not see me for very long. And it was right when comics were first starting to be adapted for movies. Like the Marvel Cinematic Universe had not kicked off yet. It just seemed like these floodgates were open, and like with these effects, you could do anything. And then what was the movie Snyder did after that? Was that Watchmen?
Well, I think he did the
Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch, yeah. Sucker Punch was the next one, which I don't like. And then
Watchmen.
I think Watchmen is bloated. I think it's fucking stupid.
No. Yeah, it has problems. It's just like when you talk about what he'd be good at, he was good at directing The Watchmen. There are some really ham-fisted moments, but like he found the right tone for The Watchmen and brought it to Superman, and that's a bummer.
Right.
That was a bad move.
Yeah, it's definitely because like I said, it was very faithful to Alan Moore's vision of superheroes are a flawed concept. Everything is
cynicism.
Yeah, it's
zero hope.
That doesn't lie. You're right. That's not a Superman trait. Superman is hope. He is the American dream.
He's the American Jesus.
Yeah, like it's. But I don't. Like I said, like I understood going into like maybe I was going in with tempered expectations because I don't like Zack Snyder could never like make me like I can't really garner like an excitement for a Zack Snyder film.
Dawn of the Dead, his remake of Dawn of the Dead is fantastic. To me, still, like I love that movie.
I'm not a zombie guy though. Like I like the one zombie movie I like is Zombieland, which is
it's so well paced. It's so funny in terms of the grotesque, violent things it does. It shoots a baby in the face. That's one. And that's at the time. I'm like, this is great. Maybe he shouldn't direct Superman. He did a really good job with that shooting a baby in the face scene. Maybe he doesn't need to direct Superman. I don't know. I don't want to. That was another. That did have the anime gamer response of like, if you don't like this movie, you've invalidated my opinion. I have not. And I think maybe one time I said you shouldn't like this movie, and I didn't mean to say you're not allowed to like this movie. Right. But if you like this movie, I imagine you like these characters because an objective film reviewer can't come in and like this movie. It's broken in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
that's impossible. So you have to like Batman and Superman. If you like Batman and Superman, you can't like this and champion another version of this. This cannot be the way the universe opens up. This cannot be the way kids think of Batman and Superman for the next 20 years. That's a bad move. That is a bad move. And it doesn't have to be as cheery and fun as Marvel, but Jesus, why wouldn't you aspire to that? Your characters created that before Marvel did.
But see, that's what's so weird about it. If you look at the inverse, is that Marvel Comics, like for the longest, I didn't like Marvel Comics because they are just shitty dark. Like it's It's the reason why I like Image Comics. The reason why I like Spawn. It's the reason why I like a lot of like the McFarlane stuff.
Very 90s.
Or Punisher. Yeah, I absolutely hate 90s comics. Outside of Deadpool, and it's not because Rob Liefeld's creation of Deadpool, but I like to have fun with my media. Like you can be bleak, but the kernel of hope is what makes you as a reader want to invest more. Like
how much hope did you have after Batman versus Superman?
Well, Batman didn't kill him. Yeah. Okay, so I'll say this: the Doomsday fight looks like ass. But
a shot at the top of Mountain Doom for some reason for night.
Them coming together, was the kernel of the movie that I was like, okay, this is what we need to do. Like, if this is just if we take this as the ground zeros of the Justice League being the fan of pain, I'll take that. I can absolutely. I'll give you him saying Martha, and for some reason that's Batman's safety word. Like, I'll give you all that bullshit if we get a Justice League movie that is that scene where they were having fun, like they were legitimately enjoying each other. Like, I want that scene,
complementing one another visually in a way that these characters are supposed to.
Exactly.
And I didn't have a problem with the fight. I don't actually know why people are hung up on the Martha line, because
it's like if his mom was named literally anything else, it wouldn't have happened. And it has to do more with, I think, how Snyder shot the scene and how he shot the movie up into it, because this is a Batman centric movie.
Yeah, on paper, the Martha moment should be awesome, and I'm surprised no one did it before.
Right.
Really, because like I knew that, but I never think that.
Right.
And that is a great way to universally ground these characters into a momentary truce. Like on paper, I think that works really well. I don't know, but it's one of those criticisms I read constantly about the film, the Martha scene. I'm like, was the scene bad? I don't know. I didn't hate that part.
It's just such a throwaway thing. It's so crazy. I want to bring this up before we go, because I don't want to hold you up too late. You have streaming. You have streaming today? Are you streaming?
I do, yes.
Okay.
I don't know what. We'll see. Maybe it's Independence Day.
All right. So my brother, who maybe get a chance to watch this, so if you do, hey, Arterius, my youngest brother who just graduated high school, just went saw him graduated. I asked him, was like, oh, well, have you seen Captain America yet? Just so I can, I just saw it. I literally saw it the day before. I work overnight now, so I can barely watch any movies. So, but I did get a chance to see it. Fucking loved it, and I was like, oh, hey, have you seen, Captain America? And he was like, oh no, I haven't seen any of those superhero movies.
And he just graduated high school?
He just graduated high school, but he's from Alabama, right outside Mobile, Alabama. I'm not sure, what the multiplayer. So I've actually just recently sent him all of Phase 1. But like,
really? How did he miss all that?
I have no idea. I literally have no idea, but he's never seen any of them.
And so I say that as someone just walking through a Target, like, it is impossible for someone his age to miss this. Like, he has to intentionally be turning me. What is he into?
He's into sports. Maybe that's it. Like, no, it's because I know he's been into other stuff because, but it wasn't like he was like, I was adverse. Like, he was adverse. Like, oh, I'll never go. I was like, oh, hey, I'll send it to you. And he's like, this was like, oh, hey, are you going to send it to me? Everything. And so, like, how do you, like I said, I use this to pivot. Like, how do you get someone who's been almost like it's literally like he is an alien germane to this whole existence of this thing, like of all this. Yeah. Because it's never it's just never penetrated to them.
That's insane. What the hell? I just can't imagine it. I can't imagine it.
It blew my mind when he told me. He was like, yeah, I've never seen any of those movies. Like,
I mean, just when we go see them in San Francisco, it's the only time I see kids, because it's part of their culture too.
Right.
They're teenagers. I never see fucking teenagers. There's not, like, they just closed down like 2 high schools in the city because it's just all fucking young idiot mid-20s tech people, and no one's having any children. But yeah, I always see them at these movies. That's so strange. Like, and just, he's got to be curious, or maybe that's not cool to like in like that high school age.
I guess, like, it was such a weird thing. Like, I was like,
It wouldn't be cool when I was in high school to wear a Spider-Man shirt. No way.
But I don't know.
I know things have changed.
Yeah. Well, I would say like because whenever I hear that, because I just heard somebody recently, a YouTuber I like, Gerard Khalil, the completionist. What's up, Alex? But he, you know, he talked about like when he was going through high school, like he used to get shit for collecting video games, and I was like, well, that's to me that's weird. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and then in Alabama, like, and I was extremely nerdy, and I never got shit. Like I should have gotten shit for wearing a flannel Dragon Ball Z shirt, but I didn't.
I told the story in Retronauts recently when like I sent away Cheerios box tops for a Bill and Ted's commercial. And I also said this a lot. The movie Me, Myself, and Irene, I've never seen a young version of me depicted in a film. And I was one of those people like, yeah, I could float freely between the jocks and the nerds and all that stuff. And like, no, it turns out no one knew I was there. And the second I get a Bill and Ted shirt, everybody looks at me. And just all of a sudden I learned how unpopular I was. At that point, I was nothing. Before that, then when I put a target on myself, oh yeah, nobody likes me. They didn't think about me so much. They didn't know what they thought until I gave them a reason. Like it was weird to realize how unpopular you are.
Well, Chris,
everybody, you know, no, I'm tall, so no one beats me up. Like no one really likes me.
Right. What I would recommend is if you could ever go back in time and redo that. Gain a lot of weight once you reach the 3rd grade after you get your tonsils taken out, and then you can
never lose it.
And then never lose. No, it's the weird. So like here's
I've never heard that before.
Well, so yeah, it's like it's actually a thing. Like it's literally a thing. Like I have photos on myself. Like I was a very small kid. My mom and my dad, my little brothers are both like very thick, right? But like around the 3rd grade, I got my tonsils taken out, and I've just been a fat kid ever since. But when you're a fat kid at 3rd grade, and that's when the jokes start, you learn very easily. Like, okay, well, I will become the funny guy, and I've always said like, luckily I've never had a true bully. Like I've had like people being assholes, but people are fucking assholes like all the time, right? But I never had a true bully. And but I remember like middle school, and I thought about this because I thought about like, oh, you know, maybe I would teach. Like I like giving back, right? I started when I did PTFGN, I did that as an avenue for people who weren't writers. Like, hey, here's a chance for you to write, for people to look at it, because I want to see what you write, right? So I was thinking about teaching. It's like this is something I could do, but I told myself like I will teach high school and I will teach elementary school. I refuse to teach middle school because middle schoolers, they're fucking assholes. They're worst. They are fucking like the most like. And I talked to my roommate about it. He's like, "Oh, I love middle school." It's like middle school to me was fucking. It was the fucking worst from the start to the beginning. Like I got into the most fights in middle school. I got put on a hit list at middle school. Yeah.
Like a punch list, or like someone tried to kill you.
Okay, so I actually have 2 stories on that. So someone tried to kill you. Yeah. So like, so I was in 8th grade during the whole Columbine stuff, and literally the school I am in Jacksonville's a big city for people who've never been there. It's humongous. The area I stayed at in Jacksonville I call it suburban trash. Right? It's like people who are not really affluent, but middle class, but thought they were hard or had an edge, right? Like I went to one of the worst schools in Jacksonville, Sandalwood High School, like by perception. Like if you're in the area, you hear about Sandalwood, it's like, oh, it's a horrible school. It really wasn't that bad. But I went to school in Landmark, and I remember vividly we'd come in, and where it was like a gate where you'd open in, there were people who were playing Magic right when you walk in. And there's the basketball court, and there's like this little wall ball courts in there. And then on the wall ball courts, some guy with chalk had written names on this list.
Jesus Christ.
On the basketball court. And I was on that list. And like this was literally probably like 2 or 3 weeks like away from Columbine. So it was such a weird thing. Like, so like that happened. And like with myself, because I got also implicated, but it blew over when I was in ninth grade. I was ninth grade scumbag. So we were betting on football games in ninth grade. And when I mean betting on football games, I mean putting money down, going against the spread, like some real scumbag shit.
Yeah, I don't know that life.
Well, I love sports. It's very much of a when I was in Europe, I got into playing basketball and soccer. But every kid plays games, right? But I really didn't really get into sports until I first met my dad. When I first met him, and my dad's a huge sports guy. My dad's sports star in his city where he was from. But he, he's a huge sports fan. So I got into. I've heard you say this about wrestling and with some of the 30-30s. I got to the story of sports, right? Like I went to go visit my dad. Not to tangent again, but I went to go visit my dad, and it was the time when Florida and Florida State, they had played each other twice that year in college football, but they played each other, like I said, they had played each other earlier in the year. So it's the story of who could win. And I think the other team had won, and that was fascinating to me. And then we were watching like an NCAA game, and they're talking about Tim Duncan when he was still in college. And they're like, how's this kid from the Virgin Islands? And he had never played sports before. He was a volleyball. He started playing volleyball. Then he started playing basketball when he was a senior in high school. And then he decided, like, he had all these opportunities to go and play in the league. He decided to stay for school for 4 years at Wake Forest. Like, I was like, that's interesting to me. Yeah. So then I became a sports fan, and I know a lot about sports because I became enthralled with everything that went around sports.
The drama.
The drama.
When I describe it as like a real life comic book, like the owners are supervillains.
Yes.
The players can be heroes. And then the heroes can do heel turns.
Right.
Off the field usually, or on the. I don't know. Yeah, I get it.
Or on the field. Yeah.
It's such a long show.
Yeah.
Long show.
It's also like
every season is fucking the entire series of Gunsmoke to me. Just 25 seasons.
Well,
1 year,
football,
a year. Ugh.
Football never ends. Like me and my dad were literally just talking about football. Football never ends. But it's also I played football, so I know. Like to me, I would if you've never played American football, or if you're coming at it like, okay, explain me the game. It's something about having played it and being around it that resonates with me more, right? And I'm not even the world's hugest NFL fan, so like, I understand that thing too. But so I'm at the peak. At that time, I'm at the peak of I'm watching inside the NFL. I'm watching all this stuff. So we're betting on lines and everything like that. And I had won, and then one of the guys had not two of the guys had not paid me, and I was like, "Oh, you guys are on my hit list," and I was like hit list like this, right? And one of the guys got it, and then one of the guys, he's an asshole, like Brandon Rosa. Fuck you, you're an asshole.
I didn't say it, Brandon. It's not me.
So he went to the security guard and told him that I had a hit list on him. But I knew the security guard, and me and him were actually really cool. So he was like, yeah, he more than likely meant this. Yeah, he's like, he more than likely meant this. And he was like, no, he said this. I want you to do that.
You set off a post-Columbine red flag.
Yeah,
that got you marked as like a potential danger to the school. That's pretty nuts.
Well, it actually didn't it didn't hurt. Like it didn't hurt because the guy knew the security guy knew what I was talking about. So like he actually threatened. He's like, would you like me to bring your parents in so you can explain this to him?
I was going to shoot him. I meant I was going to beat him up over gambling debts. God, he should be expelled. You didn't pay up.
He didn't pay up. But yeah, that would be that whole thing. Like I said, that guy was awful. He also got my Game Boy Color stolen.
Now,
yeah. It's the reason why I don't let people borrow video games. I've gotten too many video games stolen by assholes.
The reason why I don't buy physical mostly is because like I love letting people borrow stuff because I'm not using everything. Look behind me. I'm not using everything I have ever. Right. But I always forget to ask for it back. With digital, it's not an issue.
Right. Well, it's so.
You can't have it.
Well, it's so crazy. Like I was telling my roommate, like I had a copy of Sonic and Knuckles, right? And I am one of the hugest Dreamcast Sonic fans. You know, if I'm not a Dreamcast Sonic fan, I have the Dreamcast. Like, I played 3 games on Dreamcast. I love the Dreamcast, but it was not Sonic Adventure, and it was not Sonic Adventure 2. Soul Calibur, Power Stone, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Those are the games. Those are the games that I've played. So but I have no affinity to that. But I love Sonic. Sonic, like when I first played Sonic 2, I was like, why are we even doing a game? How can you be better than Sonic 2? The music is great. Everything is great. And so
I'm so happy I was alive when that happened. It was really fun. I'm not fucking around. It was a really good time to be alive today.
Yeah. No, it was so great. And my dad had got me Sonic and Knuckles. And I was like, this is all I want for Christmas, is that. So my dad, he was in Biloxi at the time, so he sent me Sonic and Knuckles, and it was great. But I'm also a huge Street Fighter fan. And I remember I was in class, and I traded the guy. He was like, "Oh, I have Street Fighter Turbo. You know, if you let me borrow Sonic and Knuckles, I'll let you borrow Street Fighter." Sure, I'll do that.
That's where you get your name from.
And not where I get my name from at all. It's not where I get. That's a Mega Man reference. That is a Mega Man reference.
I don't get it. Don't know who that is. It's all about Mighty Number 9 now.
Yeah. Get that beat on the beat. It's better than nothing. But I was bringing it. I borrowed it, had fun. Like I said, love Street Fighter. I was bringing it back, and then like a guy on the bus. And it's me being a dumbass and an asshole. The guy on the bus was like, "Oh, hey, that's Street Fighter. You know, can I borrow that?" And I was like, "Well, I was gonna bring it back to the guy, but sure, whatever. Like, you can borrow it." And he ends up stealing it. Like, he ends up and his dad was like a super racist, you know, redneck guy. So my dad came. Yeah, when my dad came by there, he tried to fight my dad.
Jesus.
So yeah. I'll never let. Yeah, it's a very sore subject. Yeah,
you should leave the South. I did.
I
go back to
I think about it. I think about it a lot, but I also really like Jacksonville. Like, it's a weird thing. It's a very.
I never lived there. I live in a much smaller town there.
It's what, St. Augustine?
Tallahassee.
Oh well, yeah. Well, Tallahassee. Tallahassee's bus station is the fucking worst. Like,
I've been there a billion times.
It's fucking awful. Like, I just recently.
It used to be the only place to play Metal Slug. True story.
Really?
True story, and it has a glory hole in it.
Does it really?
Yes.
Who would want to get a blowjob in that bathroom? Like, there was piss all over the floor in that bathroom. It's completely awful.
Although one time I was deemed too drunk to ride Greyhound. That did happen.
Wait, you can be too drunk to ride a Greyhound?
Yeah.
That's
and I wasn't out of control. I was just I made a habit of, like, I'd come back to Tallahassee for a weekend from St. Augustine when I went to Flagler College for a semester, and then I'd get hammered and get on the bus at midnight and sleep it off with my friends. Oh, sorry. That's it. I don't even remember it that well. I had to wait for the next bus. It was fine. It was fun.
Hey, at least you didn't have to pay for your bus. But I feel that you getting drunk on a bus is a perfect end time.
Yeah, we have to start an awful Independence Day stream soon.
All right. So yeah, obviously, like I said, we thank Chris for being on here.
Thank you for having me, Trav.
Go Patreon his stuff.
Thank you to all our patrons. It does keep us afloat. It allowed us to launch new shows that are doing pretty okay, that we're really proud of. 30, 20, 10, a look at pop culture 30, 20, and 10 years ago from that week. This week, I'm pretty sure we're looking at Nutty Professor, Labyrinth, and not Click. I forget what the 06 movie is. But and then Talking Simpsons this week. I think Homer Alone, is that this week's episode? It doesn't matter. We have a lot more Lasertime shows coming at you. This week's is back to our pilots, and it's weird. Younger people didn't know what we meant by that. Non-organic guest appearances meant to launch new shows, and it's how in a pre-internet world, but when you didn't have a hype machine and YouTube trailers, you would have to make these characters appear on a popular show so that everyone would know they have a show coming this fall and watch them there. And just how many of them happen on, like, Married with Children and stuff like that. Failed stuff mostly.
Right.
But now showing up on The Simpsons. You don't know The Simpsons.
Yeah. Well, now you have now you have people who guest on people's shows, so you get a bigger audience. That way, you can get people to watch it.
It's true.
But
you're fucked if you're looking at me to do that.
But obviously, like I said, go follow Lasertime on YouTube. The YouTube stuff's so good. Tony Wilson stuff is so. As a matter of fact, an announcement with that in a second. But Tony Wilson stuff is so good. The Marvel cards, great. The playthrough of Kingdom Hearts, which look, I'm going to say this because everyone has been doing telling you to get good. Fuck that! Like that game aged horribly.
It aged horribly. And someone confirmed to us Square made it harder. And then for another thing, the way our stream is set up, I didn't know this. One, I'm skipping through every prompt and tutorial and just going off memory from 15 years ago. Two, our pictures are over the spots where it tells us what buttons do what. And only recently was I able to see that and start using those and learning how to. I know but you're not in that to watch me play well. It's just to fucking let's go look at Square and Disney characters and see how they look. And it looks surprisingly good considering how old it is. Yeah. We just played the Aladdin levels and like the genie's modeled really well. Well, a studio like Square who's just used to stagnant cutscenes in game at that point, it looks really good.
Yeah, I actually am glad like you guys started off with one. I think two does a lot of stuff better. I think it's a better game, but two also has the longest opening, where all the Kingdom Hearts. I openly, and we'll probably have to talk about this another time, but I openly think Kingdom Hearts 3 should never happen. It is all because
we'll be dead.
Yeah, it's all because of the opening of Kingdom Hearts 2. Kingdom Hearts 2's opening, it's the most
like heart's a battleground.
Every bullshit thing that's ever happened with Kingdom Hearts, it starts with that. You introduce Roxas, and you do all this fucking bullshit.
That's crazy.
It literally starts.
That is a backdoor pilot because there's no reason for fucking Roxas to be there for the first 4 hours of the game, other than we want to introduce somebody who's going to be in another game.
Yeah, we're going to get Roxas, and we'll have Nominee. We'll have Nominee from this card game that nobody ever played. We're going to do all that, but it's the better playing game. But yeah, obviously, like I said, you want to check that stuff out.
Yeah. And we're going to get started today with some fucking Independence Day for the PS1. Hooray! I don't know what we're doing today exactly. I gotta go let Dave in.
All right.
But, thanks for having me on, man. Anytime.
No, absolutely. So I want to give some kind of scheduling announcement for people who are watching. We normally do these on Tuesdays. We've been doing great for these last 3 weeks. However, next Tuesday is Independence Day, is that Monday, and I'm also working next Tuesday. So there will not be a live show next Tuesday. I might do something. I don't know. There won't be a live show next Tuesday. However, after that, I will be having John Bolding, formerly of The Escapists, who is a tabletop guy, met him at PAX. Probably talk about tabletop stuff. And then the week after that, I'm going to have GameSpot's own Tony Wilson on this show. And me and Tony are old friends.
Never get to talk to Tony.
So yeah, we're going to have videogames.com's Tony Wilson on the show. And we're going to try to do more guests. Obviously, we're trying to get Chris back on because there's a lot more stuff I would love to talk to Chris about. It's so what was funny, and I can say this now, my first guest that I actually wanted to have on is I wanted to have on Henry, right? And I was like, this would be the first thing I have it on. And he was, at the time, was the Orlando stuff. So he told me, he's like, I would have done it, but I am not in the mind space for that.
I can't imagine he was.
Yeah. And now he has a job. He has like an actual real job. So I will never get Henry on this live show.
That's not true. I think part of his real job is reaching out to people like you guys and promoting their shit. So like, do ask him.
I will. I like to
figure out who the boss is and tweet him.
Yeah, let's be like, hey. But yeah, well, thank you guys so much. Obviously, if you are watching this live, please subscribe so you can know what the next show is. Go back and watch other episodes with John McFarlane. Talk about E3. Dylan talk about E3. Me and Aziz, we talked about Mighty Number 9. It's great opening launch, and we talked about movies until the internet crapped out. And rewatch this episode with me and Chris. Did you forget what we talked about? Well, you can go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, dude. That's the spirit. All right. It's there. The button's there for a reason, apparently.
Obviously, follow Chris on Twitter at Antista. Follow me on Twitter at Turbo Bison. Follow my podcast on Twitter at PNB Podcast. Listen to that podcast, please. And also go to the Lasertime Facebook group. It is a group full of great people.
Fun, man.
It's now gotten so diverse that I have no idea who anybody is anymore. So that's a fun thing. So and they do monthly live shows where you can kind of catch everything. So definitely do that. Check that out. And yeah, so thank you guys for coming. There is a fly on my face. So that's a good time to end. So bye.
Peace.